All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, Matty P here with another episode of Steelers Touchdown Under. We are talking about the game on Sunday. We are talking about the Steelers 32-13 win over the Las Vegas Raiders. I want to do this after the win, but I wanted to watch a little bit more of Justin Fields. People know my comments on Justin Fields so far, so I wanted to do some due justice there, do some due diligence, and have a look a bit more at the quarterback play. A couple of things to kick off with, obviously. This is going to go out on Tuesday morning, American time. So from that perspective, we do need to see about the Zach Frazier injury. Obviously, it's a huge, if he's going to be out for a considerable length of time. Obviously, they've got no, apart from Ryan McCollum, there's no real backup center there. There's a big gap between Ryan McCollum and Zach Frazier there. So any time that Zach Frazier misses will be a problem. They will probably have to do other they'll have to be thinking about what they're going to do as depth for McCollum. Who are they going to start? Who are they going to pick up off the street? Are they going to go practice squad? Is Spencer Anderson the easy elevation there? Mason McCormick has snapped occasionally prior to joining the Steelers. So is that going to be something that they look at? There's a few different options that they're going to be needing to think about. Also, another bummer when you think about Siamalu, how Fatanu's out, because you could have kicked Fatanu in at guard. You could have moved Siamalu around. There's a few, and James Daniels also being injured when he could play as center. The offensive line is kind of just game to game right now, and it's a real problem because obviously the fumbles that we saw to kick off the season with Fields, they could be back. So that kind of sucks from that perspective with Frazier just getting going. So hopefully it is just a week to week. Hopefully it's nothing too bad with the ankle with Frazier, and the Steelers can get him back ASAP and get back to continue their winning ways at 4-2. Obviously, a few other bumps and bruises associated with play. We need to see Nick Herbig was out. We need to see what the Steelers are going to do around the linebackers this week and who's fit and who's not. That's going to be an evolving process as well. There are a couple of other, sort of niggles in that game too. I want to see how it plays out was basically the summation of what I'm saying right now. We need to see what the official injury report says before we can make some determinations on, who's going to be fully in, who's going to be fully out. I know Patrick Queen's also in the mix. He played through an injury as well. So there's a lot going on with the Steelers injury-wise. That will take its course throughout the rest of the week. But I wanted to have a look at this game. I wanted to have a look at some of the things that we saw coming out of this game, and that's what we're going to focus on in today's show. Right. Now, one thing I want to start with is let's just go in terms of the Steelers and some of the stats that we saw out of this game to begin with, right? Steelers obviously win 32-13. They scored 12 points in the first half. They scored, the Vegas Raiders scored 7. Then they put 20 points on in the second half. So it was definitely up until halftime. I kind of had enough. I was kind of definitely on the Russell Wilson train, get him in there. The Raiders kind of look like I actually thought at one point the Raiders would look like they're going to steamroll them. And look, that's a controversial thing to say when the Steelers won by what they did. The Steelers defense came up absolute trumps. Big shout out to TJ Watt. They're holding him, but he still forces 2 fumbles. It's insane what that man does. He is an alien, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. So really happy with what TJ was able to produce. Really happy what the defense did. Jeremiah Moon, I thought he had a pretty good day at linebacker. Obviously, outside linebacker, obviously he blocked the punt as well. If we go down in terms of some of his defense there, he did have a good game. 2 combined tackles, according to Pro Football Reference. No tackles for loss, no sacks, but I did think he put a lot of pressure on, and he did play a nice complement to TJ and produce something on that side. Now, obviously, Minka went out injury. That's the other thing. We did see Terrell Edmonds come in, so that's the other aspect, how long Minka is going to be in or out for. I leave that to injury reports until we know coming out to Mike Tomlin's Tuesday press conference. You got to leave that open from what it was. Offensively, I think that's another area that I wanted to quickly go into, which I'll pull up on the screen. Obviously, Najee Harris had a really good day out there, 106 yards off 14 carries, had a big explosive run that led to the TD. Really good stuff there. You got to look at Justin Fields, 14 for 24, 145 yards. He got sacked 3 times. He had a quarterback rating of 75.9. That's the normal quarterback rating, not the ESPN one. 2 rushing TDs, 59 yards from 11 attempts. from him. That meant that it was a lot less for Warren and Jonathan Ward there, which kind of sucked for Warren, I thought, but it is what it is. And then Najee Harris had 16 yards receiving as well. Pickens had 53, 3 receptions off 8 targets. Jalen Warren had 11 yards, 36 yards for Calvin Austin, 2 of 5 receptions. Pat Freiermuth, 16 from 3, almost had that TD. Darnell only had 1 this week. I thought he'd do a bit more. He cost me some money. I did a big multi-bet or a parlay bet that you like to call it over there. And then Connor Haywood had 4 yards. Okay, so now we get to the elephant, I guess, in the room from what I wanted to talk about, and that's Justin Fields. He got the win. He rushed. We saw more of that. People that regular listeners to the show probably getting sick of me on this, probably sounding like I'm on this hater Fields train. I'm not. He won the game. He deserves to keep going until they lose a few more. If they lost this game, it's rust time. That's in my opinion. But he won the game, and he looked a bit better at times. There were some dumb penalties for the Steelers. Actually, that's the other thing. I wanted to go into third down because third down, Steelers were 4 from 13. They conceded 7 penalties for 50 yards. Absolute drive killers. That was on them. That crushed them in the first half, but thankfully they still won the time possession. Big reason why they win. When Steelers are time possession, they win like 80% of the time, or approximately. Give or take a couple of percent here and there. But moving to Justin Fields, I want to talk about this because, and it was interesting, when you look at this on Pro Football Reference, it's somehow like the Steelers drive, the numbers are small. So we're going to go off ESPN. But obviously the Steelers go to the first quarter, field goal. Then they get the touch. Yeah, so then they get the touchdown. Pardon me. And that is, actually, no, we're going to go off ESPN because I trust it because it was an anomaly off Pro Football Reference. So they go down the field, first drive, field goal. Then the Raiders score a TD. They respond with a TD. And the Steelers punt. Then the Raiders punt. Then the Steelers kick a field goal. Then the Raiders punt. Then the Steelers punt. Then the Raiders fumble. And the Steelers touchdown. And then turnover on downs. They go into the break 12-7, right? Fine. Then the Steelers come out. And it's a blocked punt on downs for the Steelers. Field goal, like the Steelers do the blocking. Field goal, so Pittsburgh are up 15-7, right? But still, the offense, like, well, the thing I should say is field goal, 37 yards to kick off with. Field goal, 43 yards to go off with. Touchdown was 30 yards. So short fields, which is good. And obviously that happens when there's a fumble and turnover. But then the Steelers go field goal minus 10 yards. Then the Raiders punt and the Steelers go 80 yards. So that's pretty good. Then the Steelers punt off only 33 yards. And there's an interception close to the line, which leads the Steelers to one play, 7-yard touchdown, which is when Justin Fields scrambled. Then we kick a field goal off 6 plays for only 18 yards, and then it's the end of the game. Why am I saying all this? The Steelers did win. And as I said, you can't knock Justin Fields. He got the win. He scrambled for some TDs. But I still cannot help having questions about the long-term viability of this offense. Now, this is going to win you a few divisional games, this type of play. It probably will. Probably not. It might struggle again, one of the games against Joe Burrow, depending on how that team's going at that point in the season. You're probably going to struggle in at least one game for the Ravens side of things. You're probably going to struggle against the Commanders, even though they got beat by the Ravens, because when you go away to them in November, they're going to be able to score some points on you, barring any injuries they have. The Steelers got to 30 points, so I can't slight them on not getting 30 points. I love that they won by almost 20 points. I love that. I don't mean to be negative, Nancy. It's great. We're 4-2. But I do really worry about the sustainability of this offense and being able to win, because we relied on some turnovers in their half to win the game. Now that's fine. The Steelers have the highest paid defense, the cheapest offense, the second cheapest offense, and there's the biggest gap between the offense and the defense in the league. We need the defense to do this, to win. But you're going to struggle to be a double-digit win team unless you start throwing 300 yards, right? Now, the argument against what I just said is that Big Ben, whenever he threw for over 350 yards in the playoffs, often meant the Steelers were way behind. Justin Fields threw for over 300 against the Indianapolis Colts, and the Steelers lost that game. So from that perspective, you can sort of say, well, Matt, maybe they don't need to throw for 300 yards. And I kind of get it. Like if that's what it is, I do kind of get it. But I don't think the Steelers' offense is going to be a contender at the end of the season. And we've seen 5 games, so we're almost a third of the way through the season right now. As soon as we get to 6, we're more than a third through. Right? 156, 117, 245, 312, 131, and 145. Completion rating percentage was 58.3% this week for Justin Fields. It was 55 the week before. Like, this is not sustainable for the offense. That's all I'm saying. His average this year is 66% because he threw a 78% in terms of completion rate. His average yards per game is 184.3. Second highest in his career, but it was high last year in the Chicago offense. They ended up getting the first-round draft pick. His yards per attempt is the equal lowest with the 2 other times in his career. It's only 0.2 below his best, so that's not a high thing for him. It's hard. It's hard to, and he's been sacked for a lot of yards, even though he's only been sacked 16 times. It's hard to sit here concrete and say that Justin Fields is the answer for the rest of the season. It's hard to sit here and say that Justin Fields is the answer for after the season. But here's actually a bonus. I'm going to flip this. Here's a bonus for Justin Fields. While he has rust breathing down his neck, kind of a bit like Jalen Warren coming back and breathing down Najee Harris's neck for carries, treat it game by game. If the Steelers are serious about paying Justin Fields from the end of the season and beyond, he needs to think that he's yes, he needs some ability that he can make a mistake, right? So the threshold of the rope should be 2 interceptions. But let him keep playing with rust breathing down his neck. So injuries can always happen. We've seen that to a lot of Steelers players. Then rust can come in. But if he's got rust breathing down his neck and he plays even better, well then great. It's a win-win. It's a win for the Steelers. It's a win for Fields, and we'll see where we go. Now we'll actually have to force Russ's hand, because what if he pulls out the trade request, which I can't think he can do technically. Before the trade deadline. He can make a song and dance about it, but he can't pull it officially. I still think the Steelers should keep him. To be honest, I think just ride these 2 guys out. You never know what's going to happen. And whether it's poor performance, whether it's injuries, you do not know what is going to happen moving forward, particularly when you have so many injuries on your offensive line. You need 2 quarterbacks to play. We saw 45 quarterbacks play in the NFL last year. But I think it's awesome for Justin Fields, because if he can continue to have rust breathing down his neck and he continues to play well, then that's only going to help him in the long term as well. Equally, he's doing some things that I think at least teams think he's not throwing the football away. But I do legitimately have concerns about 1,100 yards through 6 games this season. What am I saying? We are a third of the way through the season. What was I saying before? Not even 200 a game. And look, you can't fault the Steelers for 4-2. The defense is why we're 4-2. Particularly when you look at the games that we've had. The Steelers have barely conceded. They've only conceded over 20 points twice. One of them was only 20 points. They've only conceded more than 21 points once. Both those losses. Offense could have done more in Indy. Well, the defense could have done a lot more in Indy. So could the offense. But Justin Fields tried his best in that one. But the offense could have done a lot more against Dallas at home. And so could the defense on that final play. I think that's an equal loss on both of them. But Steelers are 4-2. You love to see it. They've got the talent. The thing is, they've got through 6 games and they're 4-2. They've got to play the 2 New York teams to come. They've got plenty that they can do to be a force in the league this season. maybe not force probably, but to be a contender for the playoffs. They can do that, right? But it's going to come down to them becoming a lot more efficient on offense, because this is not going to be enough. I'm not saying Justin Fields can't get it done. I do think we're seeing some glimpses. Can he get it done quick enough before the game against the Jets this week? Can he get it done? That's going to be the key thing. And then we move to Giants, and then we continue from there. Then we go by, and then we go, I think Washington, I think is how it's going to go. So off the schedule off the top of my head. So I do think that when we look at the Steelers, we need to see more offensively. I do also think that they're going to have challenges without their top offensive line. They're going to have to rely a bit more on the run game. And I do think that's really interesting going into the trade deadline as well, what might happen with this team. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Are you feeling like, obviously, put aside the Steelers winning by almost 20 points? Great, scoring 30 points. Are you comfortable with the offense for most of the teams that they're going to play this season? Are you concerned? Do you think the Steelers are getting lucky? Are you like, I want to know, what are you feeling about the prospects of this team? Like right now, if I ask you the question, what's the Steelers record? What do you think the Steelers record is? And how do you think they're going to go between now and the start of the divisional games? I'd love to know that in the comments. But hey, ask me any questions you want as well. I'm Matty P. As always, go Steelers.